Gary, the Huddersfield game, you obviously weren't too happy after it. 35 seconds in, they score. Didn't really give you a chance to try out the new formation, did it?
No, it was a little sense of irony that we worked incredibly hard all week. Felt we had a really competitive and good weeks training, really productive. Felt as though we needed to do something different, and I think that's, I think in some ways the easy thing's to do the same thing, but we wanted to be a little bit braver and play on the front foot and see if we can get the crowd going. Ironically, it was probably the worst start I've ever had in a game, where 25 seconds the goal went in. A little bit of fortune with the goal, a little bit of poor decision making on some of the players' point of view. And you could almost see the confidence sort of evaporate from the whole stadium and the players within that 25 seconds. So it was a difficult one. And I think this week, really, we've almost had to try and kind of put those things to one side now. I said it probably 2 weeks ago. I said I think we're in for a challenging month. Perhaps didn't feel it'd be quite as challenging as it has been. But I think that's what it is. We've got to get through this period. We've got to try and get back to what we do best. We've got to try and get some good results. And we've been very positive this week in trying to do that. I said before, but sometimes you go on really good runs. I think we went 4 games and won all 4 games not long ago. Didn't get too excited about it, because I think you always realise as a manager that it might be one of these little periods around the corner. So certainly a testing period in many ways, but that's what tests are for. You roll your sleeves up and you see if you can answer the test. Simple as that.
Well, I think if you go back and ask the fans at the start of the season, after about 19 games, you'd be happy with 8th in the league. I think they'd have been very happy, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, if you're going to get the perfect timing, I think most people's perfect timing was start poorly and then just go on a crest of a wave like we did last season. But like you say, we took some calculated gambles in the summer in terms of how we wanted to do things. I think the thing with gambles is that they either win or they lose. There's nothing really in between. And I think that our gamble was always to go really tight with a squad to get the most out of the budget that we've got. Give players new contracts to give them that feeling of achievement and self-worth, and I think that's had a great effect at the start of this season. So like you say, to have a poor period now after losing some key players, which we knew was always the flip side to that gamble, like you say, to be 1 point off the playoffs. I've had to share that with the players this week. I think we tend to have a meeting every now and then based on, listen, this is where we are, let's be realistic, and I never like to put a limit on our achievements, but I think at 6th, when you look at the 5 teams above us and their financial power, I think I've probably been guilty of saying to the players, how do we get in that mix, how do we get in that bunch, where the reality is probably I should have been thanking them and rewarding them for getting us to 6th and saying, listen, we're doing brilliant here, and just staying relaxed and accepting them for what they are as players, rather than perhaps push them to levels that some of the players I think have found certainly a challenge.
And do you think, going back, coming up 2 weeks ago now, the rumours flying around with the Fulham connection and all that, playing on their minds at some point?
I don't know. It's always difficult to answer that one. I think as a manager, you don't think the players are that bothered by that. But I think looking back, I think this whole period, I'm sure that the players have been a little bit affected by that speculation. I think probably some of the staff might have been affected by that speculation, because of course, when a manager's linked to jobs, I think some of the other people don't realise, but there's like 15, 16, 17 other staff probably thinking, God, what's going to happen to us then? So I think there is that feeling of a little bit of uncertainty. And hopefully, for us, we want to kind of put that all to bed and crack on. I think that there's certainly light at the end of the tunnel in the next couple of weeks in terms of getting some really key players back that I think any team at any level would miss. And there's also light at the end of the tunnel of us being able to be competitive in the transfer market in January. I think for us, though, we've got to make sure that light stays burning brightly with our performances over the next 3 games, and we certainly don't want to go to that period and almost not think about the next 3 games. We want to get back to what we're good at. We know it's going to be tough.
Transfer period in January, obviously it's a few weeks away. Do you know who you want? Have you got a budget to work to?
Yeah, we always have our targets, and we'll have a list of kind of dream targets, if you like. Then we'll have a list of reality. after that, and sometimes you can get one or two of those at the top of your list. Sometimes you have to work down the list. That's just the way it works. You know, there's other clubs that we've made inquiries in over the last sort of couple of weeks, but people are happy to keep people as squad players because perhaps they don't need to move players on. So that's the challenge, I think. I think January is a very different window to the last window in the sense that people then look towards the end of the season. They'll bring players in themselves. They'll know players are not happy if they're not in their team. So, we'll certainly bring players in, and I think sometimes the success of a window can dictate your season in terms of if you can drop on one or two, like we did last season, Tesh, Fabrini, Rob Kiernan to a certain degree. You look at those sort of players that made a massive difference to us. Ironically, this weekend, Diego might end up being on Middlesbrough's bench because they might not quite need him in terms of somebody else. So again, that shows the reality of the situation, which is why that, regardless of results, I always have to try and maintain a little bit of balance.
And where are you with Damien Cottrell still out and Clayton? Are they due back in the next few weeks?
We're hoping. I mean, again, I don't want to be too I don't want to put too much of a time scale on it because, as we know, sometimes it's dependent on a lot of things. But if everything goes perfectly, if everything goes to plan, then Robbo, Cots and Clayton might all be available for the Sheff Wednesday game, which at the moment feels, like a year away, let alone 2 weeks away. But yes, I think that'll give. I think what you find as well is, and it's something I've probably overlooked, that when players like that get injured, and you look at probably nearly half your goals and nearly half your assists, and that's just the reality of the figures. I think some of the players in the team lose a little bit of heart as well, and perhaps maybe lose a bit of confidence from seeing those players not in the team. So, it'd be good to get them back.
Middlesbrough, of course, away on Saturday. I mean, there's no easy game in this league anyway, but this is really a toughie. Any thoughts on changing the formation or maybe putting Vaughan up front to the Brock?
Yeah, I think changing the formation after last week's probably I'm probably never going to do that again in my life. If I manage now for the next 20 years, hopefully, I'm never ever going to press high up the pitch just for the sheer fear of it happening again. Of course, I'm talking slightly ironically, but I think the thing for me is I think that Vaughan is probably the most likely. There might be one or two positions behind that depending on players' fitness and one or two ways of going, but I think we're going to try and get back to consistency and get back to that consistent team selection. But I think certainly the experience of Vaughan, he would have played last week against Huddersfield. I think Brock's done okay and done what we've expected, but obviously the expectation for us was to never have to rely on him for 4, 5, 6 games in a row because he's a young player learning his trade in a new league. So I think certainly Vaughan will come back into the reckoning.
And Paul Caddis?
Yeah, Cads is another one that, I think he's been unfortunate that he got left out last week, but I think sometimes when players dip their form, he's not the only one in the team, but he's had Neil Eardley desperate for a chance, and he held off that challenge for a long time. Erd's finally got that chance against Ipswich. I thought he did really well in 44 minutes. It was on the pitch, and then of course, unfortunately for him, seems to be cursed, dislocated his shoulder. So I just felt as though if someone dips and someone else is pushing really hard in training, at some point you have to give them an opportunity. But I've got no doubt that Cads at some point will be back in the team. He's a good player, he's an experienced player. He hates not being in the team, and it's almost worth playing him not to listen to him moaning in Scottish to me under his breath. But that's because he's a winner and he wants to play. I've got no issue with that. But at the moment, he's got to take that on the chin and work hard to get back in the team.